I want to talk about redistricting real quick. You've been a big time proponent of redistricting. You put together a really good op-ed in the Northwest Times, right? I think is what it is.
Northwest Indiana
Times. Yep. And I remember talking to you, and you sent me it over. I was like, man, this is so good. It lists the why, not just I think or I just want to follow President Trump just because. It is a literal just roadmap of what has been going on, where we are today, and why we need this redistricting desperately. So hit on that, briefly, and just kind of tell people the why behind redistricting. It's not just following President Trump. President Trump is right, and we should follow him in this. But what's the reason?
Yeah, I mean, when I started in this, and I actually, my team could tell you that I started talking about this last year.
Okay.
Because I felt like there was a missed opportunity here in Indiana to really put things on the map that made sense for every district, including mine, which is not a far left district.
Yeah.
We've always kind of felt misrepresented there.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. Before I started campaigning statewide, I always had in my mind Lake County, super far left.
No.
Like Lake County, Marion County. And it could not be further from the truth. I mean, you're nothing like Marion County. It's amazing.
Even the folks on the left in Lake County, most of them are traditional Democrats, right? And
a lot of them love God.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have a heart of service. They a lot of sometimes more conservative values in some ways than even people on the right.
You're not wrong.
And I have to be
You're not wrong.
Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, so I wanted to dive into data,
right,
and really take a look at it. And the first thing that struck me when I was researching it was the 2020 Census Post-Enumeration Survey. Mm-hmm. They call it the PES. That's what the Census Bureau puts out after the census to kind of audit its own work.
Yeah, right.
And they found that there were anomalies in 14 states that...
All, I would imagine, swing states?
Not all swing states.
Okay.
But some red, some blue states, and some red states were overcounted.
Okay.
Some red states were undercounted. But the totality of impact, Texas and Florida lost 3 seats. Rhode Island and Colorado should not have kept seats, but kept them. So it was a net loss of basically 5 seats for the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And so I said, all right, boy, that's curious. Let me dive into this further. So I started doing my research, and I said, wait a second. There is something going on here. If you go back through really the 2010, 2020, and now looking forward to 2030, there's been a power play at play for quite a while by Democrats to utilize the system to dilute the voices and votes of those in this country who are eligible or will be eligible to vote. And I think that's an important distinction to make, because it's not just voters, but it's citizens and people who will be eligible to vote. So I started researching that. I came across the Equal Representation Act authored by Congressman Chuck Edwards from North Carolina in 2024. And in that, very common sense legislation is the citizenship question. Are you a citizen or not? Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you're not going to be counted. Mm-hmm. Right? It just means that you're drawing a line in there saying that if we're going to truly represent the voices of the American people and people who are supposed to be here, then we need to undilute this system that, according to estimations, between 20 and 30 million undocumented immigrants live here in this country. And every congressional seat's about 760,000 people. And you start to do the math, and you find that about 1/10 of our Congress is being diluted by folks who should not count towards apportionment. Now, we all know the Constitution says you count every person. But never in our history did we have 4 years where you had a presidential administration that was completely ignoring federal law, and you had states and cities adopting sanctuary laws, which by their nature are unconstitutional because they're usurping federal authority. Yeah. So there is a true constitutional basis for this. And I said, all right, we've got to figure out how to tell that story.
Yeah. Because the constitutional basis is count every person. Mm-hmm. And so when the left hears that, they get as many illegals in here, flood them into certain districts, count them, and now that adds to the number of congressmen in that in Congress, and Democrats will largely be the winners of those districts. You're saying, okay, count them, but just make sure we separate out the citizens from the non-citizens, and then you apply the apportionment of citizens to the number of those in Congress. Is that kind of what that bill does?
In a nutshell, yes.
Yeah.
And what it does is it counterbalances states and cities that broke federal law in the adoption of sanctuary laws that created the incentive to break federal law and the most important duty of the federal government, maintaining the sovereignty of the country.
Yeah, that's right.
So there is truly a constitutional basis. There's a need for it. That's why it's important this year to do it.
Yeah.
Because if this gets to 2032, I tell people, you don't have to wonder what will happen because they've already told us. The next time they're in control of the government, D.C. and Puerto Rico will be states.
Yeah.
They will use that to pack the courts. Once that's packed, they will pass every unconstitutional law that usurps the 10th Amendment, the enumerated rights, and the states' rights every chance they get, including drawing of maps through the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act that has a provision in there that creates standing in court for lawsuits if anyone feels that they deserve redress due to some sort of discrimination. So it's a very dangerous, slippery slope.
Is that the VRA, is that what's being heard right now in the Supreme Court with Louisiana?
So John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act was a piece of legislation that the late John Lewis authored before his passing that is an addendum and an add-on to the 1965 VRA.
Okay.
And the add-ons are even more overreach of federal government into the
States
legislative process of drawing maps,
Yeah.
because as we know here, the map drawing process is a legislative process that's governed by law. It is not just pull it out of the sky, right? You're following the process here that has been outlined in law and the state's rights to do so.
Yeah, that's right. So here we are now in Indiana. The governor literally today, this is probably going to air down the road, but at this moment, as we speak, the governor just called the special session. So we will be going back into session here. The Constitution, state Constitution, gives us this authority. Is you see any constitutional hiccup from a state perspective for us to redraw in the middle of a census time? So right now, it's not we're doing it not on every 10 years. How do we see that?
10 years isn't anywhere in the Constitution of the state.
All right.
It's tradition.
It's tradition. Okay.
And I'm okay with upholding traditions.
Sure.
And listen, there's some people that still need to be convinced. And I've had lots of conversations, and I'm not angry with people who have perspective. But what I try to do is just communicate with them what I communicated with you is there's not just a want to do this, there's a need. And it's not just about power and control, it's about correcting an intentional attack on the systems of government by the Biden administration, namely, but before him, the Obama administration.
Yeah.
So again, this is to me not as much opinion as it is going back to Ms. Thompson's class and saying, okay, prove it.
Yeah.
So that voice was always in my head when I was spending hours, sometimes late at night at my kitchen table, doing my research and saying, all right, how do we communicate this?
That's great. I love it.